Big news in the world of MMA, none bigger than this story right here. We have got Ilia Topuria saving International Fight Week. Ilia Topuria is going to save the UFC 317 card, as Ilia Topuria will be fighting for the undisputed or vacant UFC lightweight title. Finally, we are getting some good news in the world of MMA, in the UFC, because it has been doom and gloom for far too long. This is the news we need to hear. Everything points to Islam defending his belt against Topuria. Otherwise, he will be vacated. He will vacate it so that Topuria can challenge for it against Charles Oliveira. That there is music to my ears. Now, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get the matchup between Ilia versus Islam. I actually don't think that is going to be the fight for International Fight Week, unfortunately. As much as I would love for it to be Ilia versus Islam, because that there, out of any matchup that can ever be made in the sport of MMA, for me, that is the dream matchup. I don't think we're going to see that. With Joe Rogan saying reports of Islam is looking to move up and the UFC are in talks with him to fight the winner of UFC 315, and Islam Makhachev basically just not interested in fighting Ilia Topuria whatsoever. I don't know why all of a sudden Islam would have a change of mind now to fight him at UFC 317 after constantly saying he's not interested in the fight. Ignore that voice break. Maybe the UFC have just offered up more money and that's why Islam is going to take the fight. Who knows? But what I think we're more likely to see is Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira.
But what the hell, boy?
And that there is still a good matchup, still a really fun one in my opinion, a good main event at International Fight Week. Now, if we're having Ilia versus Charles as the main event, I still want to see Khamzat Chimaev on the card. If Khamzat is available to fight at UFC 317, get this guy on the card. It's not a case of now, even if it is Islam versus Topuria, it's not like, oh, we've got one massive fight, the rest of the card is going to be horse shit. Let's stack this card. The roster is deep enough to have a massive pay-per-view here. In fact, the roster is that big enough that every single UFC event should be stacked. But for some reason, the UFC's matchmaking recently has been horrendous. It's been awful. They are slowly turning into the sport of boxing. But this is a step in the right direction. Now, it says that it won't be for an interim title, it will be for undisputed or the vacant lightweight title. So the fact they've also included vacant lightweight title makes me also more confident in my pick of it being Ilia versus Oliveira, because why would you talk about the vacant title if it's leading to Islam versus Ilia? Then the vacant title point just doesn't make any sense. So the fact they've included that makes me believe that it is going to be Ilia versus Charles Oliveira. And look, I do believe Arman Tsarukyan probably should be fighting for this belt. However, he did kind of ruin UFC 311. We know the UFC aren't keen to give this guy a title fight. He is going to have to fight one more time. My ear needs to pop. It's so sore. With the current state of the lightweight division, with what matchups I think we're going to get, I think it's going to be Dan Hooker versus Arman Tsarukyan next. I think that is going to be Arman Tsarukyan's next fight. So, like I said, Joe Rogan said that Islam is looking to move up and the UFC are in talks with him to fight the winner of UFC 315. So I think they're going to go down a similar route of what happened with Ilia in the featherweight division, where Ilia wanted to move up. The UFC said, yeah, that's fine. You want to move up, fight for the lightweight title, that is fine. But you will be stripped of the featherweight title, because it doesn't seem like the UFC are that keen anymore on doing like the double champ fights. And personally, I kind of feel like that, like the appeal to the double champ fights has kind of worn off, in my opinion anyway. So I think Islam is going to be stripped of the lightweight title. Islam has already solidified himself as the greatest lightweight of all time. You know, and he's arguably close to being top 5 all time in my opinion. Islam Makhachev, if he's able to move up and win the welterweight title, which I think he will, whether it's against Bilal, whether it's against JDM, he will win the welterweight title. And at that point, I think Islam would be a top 5 fighter of all time. And then in the meantime, we get Ilia versus Oliveira. And then who knows, maybe Islam wins the welterweight title and then that, and say Islam wins the welterweight title, Ilya is the lightweight champion, that just makes that fight that much bigger as well. So there is that, but this is good. This is what we want to see. Ilya versus whoever for the lightweight title. We just want to see Ilya back in action. We haven't seen the guy since UFC 308. He's one of the biggest stars in the UFC today. He is extremely exciting to watch. Either one of these matchups is going to be a banger. I think Ilya beats either one of these guys as well. People might say I'm delusional for saying that, and you might be right. I think Ilya knocks out Charles Oliveira inside 2 rounds, and I think he stops Islam in the 3rd. That's just my opinion. But nothing's been announced from the UFC yet, so all we can do is just sit and wait. But Ilia Topuria will be lightweight champion after UFC 317. Moving on, another big news story. Obviously, we all thought we were going to get Khamzat versus DDP International Fight Week. It wasn't announced. It wasn't signed. The UFC never announced it, but that was just what everyone had. Their expectations for International Fight Week when we were led to believe, well, we now know we're not getting Jones Aspinall. We then thought we were going to get Ilya versus Islam, but we're told that we were definitely not going to get that up until now. Now the rumour is that Ilya is fighting for the belt. They don't know if it's Islam or Oliveira. So we were kind of ruled out in that matchup as well. So then the next best thing was Khamzat versus DDP. And DDP is apparently injured. According to sources, DDP has suffered a fracture in his leg, putting him out likely until 2026, which is not good. This is not good. Now, Khamzat Chimaev was calling the DDP the biggest bullshit and stuff like that, and saying that he was just slating DDP, to be honest. Then you had Caio Borralho come out and say that he wants to fight Khamzat Chimaev for the interim title. Get Ilia Topuria in the main event against either Islam or Oliveira, and then have Khamzat Caio Borralho for the interim middleweight title in the co-main event. Now, like I said, I'm not really the biggest fan of the Caio Borralho matchup, but just looking at what's available, I said the Sean Strickland matchup purely because I think a build-up sense, I think it's just money, that matchup, and I think the build-up would be really fun, and it'll be interesting to see, because if Khamzat's able to beat Sean Strickland, he's just beaten a former champion. You know, that's a really good... And then if you look, say Khamzat beats Strickland next, that would mean he's beat Strickland, Whittaker, and Usman. That's a crazy 3 back-to-back-to-back win streak. Like, names on resume. Usman, Whittaker, Strickland. Now, if he goes Usman, Whittaker, Borralho, that's still good, but I just think having that former champion in Strickland on your resume would be better. But yeah, this is shit for Dricus du Plessis. It's a shame. He did fight in February, so maybe the turnaround to June was always going to be a bit quick for him, just because of his fight style, the way he fights. He's definitely going to pick up a niggle here or there in a matchup because of just the way he fights. Like, he is just all out action from the first second till the very last second. But this is not good for Dricus du Plessis. Hopefully this isn't true. Hopefully it isn't a fracture in his leg, and hopefully this is all a bit of a miscommunication and we can hear from DDP himself and get an update on when he is going to come back. Hopefully it's like August, September time. Next up, what I want to talk about, Conor McGregor calling out Michael Chandler, and then the fact Michael Chandler responded. Like, Conor McGregor is just... what would be the word? Not clip farming. What would be the word? Engagement farming would probably be the word on social media. He's just teasing Michael Chandler. He's just winding Michael Chandler up. I mean, it's been years in the making. This matchup was obviously booked for UFC 303. McGregor pulled out with like a broken toe or something, and the fight was just never rebooked. It was never really spoke about again. I actually don't think we see McGregor in the UFC again. Now, I was one of those people that thought we would definitely see McGregor back. He will fight. But now I just think it's really unlikely. I mean, the guy's been out of the cage for ages now. He'd be coming off that leg break as well. I think he was just engagement farming here. But if he was to come back, I think Michael Chandler would be a good opponent for him because he is still ranked in the lightweight division. And honestly, I know we haven't seen Conor in a while and he hasn't won in a while, but I actually think he would beat Michael Chandler. I'm just going to be honest. I think Conor McGregor would beat Michael Chandler. And finally, just to round it off talking about this, Bilal Muhammad says he wouldn't fight Islam. There's too much respect and loyalty on my end. Now,
Brother.
this is the problem Bilal Muhammad's going to face. Islam Makhachev, to my knowledge, has never came out and said he won't fight Bilal. You know, I don't think I've ever heard Islam say that. I don't think I've heard Islam say, no, I won't fight Bilal. And Bilal Muhammad, it's a weird one because it's like, you're not part of the crew, little bro. You're not part of the gang. I don't understand. Like, you trained, what, maybe like 5 times with them? You have the same faith as him, so what does that mean? You're like brothers? Like, Bilal Muhammad's going about this like he's Aljo Marab. And everyone was shitting on Aljo and Marab for not fighting each other when those guys actually, like, basically trained. They've trained together, been in each other's corner for all their fights. They have been main training partners forever. Bilal has done about 2 sessions with Islam, and I think this is really telling on Bilal's behalf. I know he's saying it's about he's got too much respect and that's loyalty. When you hear Bilal talk about Islam, it's nothing but glaze. Bilal Muhammad knows that if he gets put in there against Islam, he loses. So I think that's why Bilal's going down the route of too much respect, we're too much good friends, the loyalty, no, I couldn't do it, because he knows Islam will beat the living piss out of him, and that's why he won't take that fight. So yeah, that's all I've got for today. Why is my ear not popping? I have no idea. Let me know your opinions on these stories in the comments below. And as always, thanks for the support. Like, share, subscribe, comment. And I'll see you all again in the next one.